What would make this home run for you?
I think like a good sort of deep cuts conversation. I think that'd be fun to like put something like that out there. So yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. I think getting into the why, because I think that's like the most unasked question that often comes up, but is like the most important thing. And like getting into that and talking about my why, I'd love to do that. I think that'd be fun.
The why for what? The why for
How I live my life, which I mean, everything kind of flows from that.
That's good. I'm glad you gave me that. Then we'll go definitely into the why. Yeah, normally like when I go on a podcast, I'd kind of like to talk about things every other podcaster doesn't talks to me about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Want to go a different place.
Yeah, like what you said in your text, like I don't want to talk about ducks. Like like what's the best way to treat bumblefoot?
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. My poor members, they asked me one time, what questions you not like? I had to tell them, but I get it every time. It didn't stop either.
Yeah.
Like how do I treat my sick chicken?
Yeah. So it's always so funny to me that, usually when people start, they always start with the how-to questions, and they're always how questions. Yeah. They never go to the why questions, and so it's usually that you start with the how, then you go to the what, and then you go to the why. Is like I feel like the progression that like as you get deeper into doing anything, it doesn't matter if it's raising chickens or woodworking or figuring out your career. It's like I think it's like the more you start to ask that why question, the more you've evolved it.
So what are these people wanting when they want to know how? Well, why don't they want to know why? Give me a how example.
Yeah.
How to heal bumblefoot on your duck?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think oftentimes you're starting with the source of the problem. Yeah. And to address the source of the problem, you've got to start with, well, how do I fix this? How do I do that? But then, why do I have bumblefoot? Like, why do I even have ducks? Like, you almost kind of have to like almost go backwards from there. And so I always try to like emphasize that why before the what.
So if the why before the what, so have you ever corrected anybody?
No, that's rude. That's
I
rude.
mean,
look, people are going to ask. I think to try to help people and like help them see the even bigger. I think that's.
How do you gently do that? Somebody say, "Why? What's wrong? Why?" They're not saying why. How do I heal bumblefoot?
Yeah,
Morgan.
I mean, I'll give you the three, but the biggest thing I think about is it's oftentimes it's some sort of cut. So it's. Is your ground not good enough? And so, like, why is it coming? Like, that's really where it goes. And so, try to get your answer to that, I think, is what else.
I feel like it's maybe the core of the problem they're missing. How do I fix bumblefoot? What you need, Matt? Turn the heat down. It's too loud?
Yep.
All right. You warm, Morgan? Because he's about to cut our heat off.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So, they want to know, how do I fix bumblefoot? That's like, how do I put on a Band-Aid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more.
Is that fair? As opposed to, well, what caused this bumblefoot in the first place?
And like, why? How do I keep it from coming? I mean, and it's not to say that both aren't important.
Yeah.
But I mean, back to your question of like, well, what do I prefer? I always prefer the why question over the how or the what.
Yeah. I asked you, and I don't know if it was rolling or not, but what would make this home run? I think it was recording, but you wanted to. Talk about the why. So we're definitely going to have to get into the why with you. I told you in text, because you said, people want to know, what is this podcast going to be about? Well, I don't know, really. Let's just talk about interesting things. With you, we'll definitely go into business and what you've been able to do with online creation. We should get into some of the why to give people context of you. So you are this... I told you we're not going to talk about ducks, and here we are.
I was going to say, we just spent 5 minutes on bumblefoot, man.
So maybe I should take a really sharp turn right here so people don't think we're going to talk about ducks the whole time. You just posted a video on encouraging farm NFTs.
Well, no, not encouraging. Right? Let me set the record straight here. So I am somebody who's always fascinated with like what's coming, where are things going, what's evolving. And I feel like you have to have been living under a rock for the last year to not be paying attention to like hearing this concept of an NFT, a non-fungible token, this sort of idea of having a digital asset that is sold on the blockchain and you have ownership of that.
Let Jason get in here for a second. Here's your water. This is famous water, by the way.
Well, I feel honored.
You know, we traveled America in 2016, 50 states at 10 months.
Yep.
There's a lot of places that do not have good water.
Yeah.
We come to really appreciate good water.
Well, I mean, living off well water is like so much nicer versus like, I think about city water.
Yeah.
Like that's a big difference.
Are you on a well water?
I'm on
Do you
well
have
water.
good,
clean water?
tasty water?
It's great. Yeah.
We hit up some free springs. There's like an internet site where you can look up springs.
Yep.
And where they're available to the public. You can go and get spring water. I feel like we found one in Vermont.
There's a lot of them. I mean, I've got, I think, three developed springs, and I imagine there's at least a handful more undeveloped.
Ben Falk was installing a spring when we went to his place in Vermont. Is that a thing? I mean,
yes,
here
like,
it's a thing. You can definitely tap springs. We have several.
You set up like a box. Typically, I mean, the old school way, you like build a box of some sort, let it flow, and then to let it overflow. I mean, right now I'm gearing up to actually figure out my winter cattle area for next year, and having a constantly flowing spring-fed waterer is something I'm looking at, because that way it'll keep it from freezing. That's how all the old timers in Vermont kept their water from freezing when they didn't have electricity back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
This house had no running water and electricity when they started out on it. I feel like Vermont and Western North Carolina are kind of similar in some ways.
I mean, this part of North Carolina for sure, because it's the hilly topography. I think creates a different type of community.
Yeah.
Like if I compare New Hampshire and Vermont, which I just see that much more on a regular basis, you've got New Hampshire, which is like fiercely independent, and you've got Vermont, which is much more committed to this concept of like community. And there are people who are out there will say that it's driven by the geography, where Vermont, you have all these little towns in the pockets of mountains. And so in olden times, like 200 years ago, it was hard to get there from here. And so you had to become very reliant on your neighbor. Whereas New Hampshire, it was driven by trade. There's a lot of easy north-south, east-west access, or easier. And so you had much more about individuality. And so I think when you're in like a hillside country like this, I think that carries forward a little bit. So I think that's where some of the similarities come.
Yeah. Do you think hillside people have a more rebellious mentality?
I don't know. So I'm a native flatlander, as they'd say in Vermont. So I grew up in like central Connecticut, and so maybe there is a certain measure of independence to it, and just sort of grit that has to come with it, because like farming in an area here, even now, is harder than a big flat property. I can only imagine 150 years ago what farming would have been like out here, trying to manage things, trying to maximize doing sustenance farming. Like that's, I don't know, that to me does not seem like an easy life.
Yeah.
So you have to have a certain measure of grit to be able to do that.
That's true. That's a good point. So they're more gritty. My dad was plowing mule. He can remember plowing a mule team at 11. So you're working when you're very young. He remember he was barefoot. I don't know what that means to the story, but he flipped this mule team at 11 years old because he's on a 35-degree slope, and he flips this team, and he can remember troubleshooting and problem solving and undoing the situation.
Wow.
At 11.
That's
When I go out west, when you go out west and it's open, people from the West Coast come out here and they feel the claustrophobic because of all the trees. You're nodding your head?
Yeah, but for me, it's
heard
more.
People talk about
I've heard people talk about that, and I feel like is it agoraphobic almost, where it's like there's so much open space. I feel like I'm out there and exposed. Like
that's where I was going to go.
It goes the other way.
It goes the other way because when I'm out west, I feel exposed. I don't know what I'm hiding from, but maybe this is heritage thing. I don't know. Maybe my people somewhere along the lines were in these mountains to hide.
That's where the hill people come from, I guess.
Growing the moonshine.
Exactly, yeah.
Having their own little nation, their own little country out here.
Yeah.
Minding their own business. Okay, back to the NFTs. So I think that's going to speak to where you're coming from and a lot of things. So why are you posting this NFT video on you? Because you were reading the comments there, and you're like, I don't know if the internet's ready for this.
Well, yeah.
Well, the internet's probably ready.
No, but
It's
the
all
people
over the
I
internet.
connect with, like
the homestead community internet, they might not be ready.
Well, let me back up because
All
I
right.
think you got to lay out the premise.
Yep.
So, NFTs, all of the rage, all sorts of opportunities that come with it. One of the thoughts I've had, and this is something that's very personally important to me, when I think about small farmers, I think that the world needs more small farmers. And what can you do to help promote that? One of the biggest barriers for small farmers right now is access to capital. Like, where are you going to get the funds that you need to, start up? How are you going to kind of get the know-how? How are you going to have the ability to sustain a couple of years that may have some significant ups and downs? NFTs could be a potential source for capital. And so is there a way to bring those two things together and leverage this new technology, which, some folks will say is this is going to be the wave of the future 5-10 years from now, and let small farmers get access to that and be able to participate in that early? So that's the premise.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe my audience hates that idea. Maybe lots of people hate that. There's lots of good reasons to hate NFTs. And so the way I see the world, I think it's really important to say, well, let me lay out the idea, get a reaction. Maybe I go that way. Maybe I throw it in the garbage. I think based on the messages I've been getting in the last hour and a half, I'm going to throw it in the garbage.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean? Throw it in the garbage. You're actually going to pull it off the channel?
No, I'm not going to pull it off the
You're
channel.
just not going to talk about it again.
I'll probably talk about it again, but I'm not going to release a collection. The reason I make the video is to get a reaction, see what people think, and then that helps me shape kind of where do I want to go and kind of what needs to be done versus me working in a bubble, like ignoring everybody, working for 6 months on this thing that everybody hates. Like, do it quick, be out there, be responsive. That is the beauty of, I think, the world that we live in today versus say 20 years ago. And so I try to take advantage of it.
This is a good point you make because you don't know how your audience is going to react to this until you hit publish. So you're failing. You're going to fail small.
Yeah, it's one video that people hate. I can live with that.
And, I come to find out, it doesn't matter if people hate it or don't click on it, and it could be half the views. YouTube doesn't punish you for that. Your next video, if it's their typical Toby dog and chasing the ducks around, and that's what people like and are used to, animal cams, it's going to pick right back up.
Yeah. And
you
so
haven't hurt yourself.
I don't sweat it. But I feel like I would be much less happy doing what I'm doing if I was like, oh, I shouldn't talk about that because people might not like it. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'd much rather say, let me actually broach it with people. I mean, I feel like that's an important way to get out there. And for me, my videos are such an extension of me personally. Like I spend a lot of time by myself in my own head. I'm not a very extroverted person, but I find that I have a absolute need to communicate by way of creating stuff. And that's how I get it drives my wife crazy all the time because it's like, I'm so in my head. I'll put everything out in a video, but it's harder, on a Sunday afternoon. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm going to go to this. This thing is I'm just monosyllabic mumbling, just not very communicative. And because for me, the creation is where I am able to express myself. And that makes such a huge difference.
I get it. Have you ever gotten in trouble with her because she
yeah.
found out your heart?
Well,
from the video and not your mouth?
I think
your audience found out before she did?
Yeah, no. So I've never done that because I feel like I'm self-aware enough to know that hey, this matters to her. But there has been many times where I will go out, say something and articulate something in a video and shoot it and then probably have a conversation with her shortly after because I feel like just that cathartic act of speaking in front of the camera has helped me get it out. I think it's probably lots of people are big journalers.
Yeah.
I don't journal, but I make a lot of videos and me talking in those videos is probably my personal equivalent of that.
Did you ever dare to go, surely not all your thoughts are consumed with ducks, geese, NFTs, and content creation. You have feelings towards your parents, towards her, towards politics or faith. Do you ever go there? With your video journaling.
Yeah, all right, so here's a good example. I made this video a couple of years ago, really talking about a friend of mine. Her name was Heather, and she was this beautiful girl I went to high school with, and I had this crazy crush on her, and I eventually asked her to go with me to this dance, And she said yes. She had no reason. She shouldn't have gone. But she liked me as a friend.
She's out of your league is what you're telling me?
Completely out of my league. I'm talking like 3 or 4.
So why'd you ask her? How'd you gut up to do that?
Let me do. I think I maybe I kind of talked myself into it, and I asked her. We went out. We had a great time, and it was as friends, and it got me to this place of seeing like, you know what? I was just kind of thinking about this as an idea. Like I like the idea of going with this girl that I thought was really pretty to go to this dance, but actually getting to know her as a person, that's like way more important. And that to me was like very kind of powerful and a transformational moment that I hadn't thought about in 20 years. But she passed away. So 2 years ago, like she passed away, and that news like just hit me. And I thought about this experience. I thought about how her kind act really changed me as a person and gave me a different perspective in that world where like I could have had a chip on my shoulder, but she put some water on it and it's just now a warm, salty paste. Like, you know, she like did that. And that was not something I had thought about. It wasn't until I like started talking about it while I was doing a chore video that I really like isolated that thought. And then, you know, I talked to my wife about it, like, but it's like that sort of stuff, which has nothing to do with farming whatsoever. Like just by being out there and talking to really my audience, I feel like I can express so much more and it becomes very free.
Yeah. You said you called it a chore video. So you told this story while you were doing chores. Did you do that on purpose? As in, you guys are here for the chores, but I want to tell this story that has nothing to do with homesteading. Here goes. This is how I marry both
I'll do
worlds.
that a lot, where I'll just kind of go on a little riff. Sometimes I'll cut it out and not even use it. Other times I'm like, oh, that's probably the more interesting thing. This was like one where like the whole video is basically about this because I realized, oh, that's the most interesting part after the fact. But you know, look, I'm a dude who lives in the second least populated state in the country, in the least populated corner of the country, in a town of 700 people. I'm often by myself most of the day. You know, up until a couple of weeks ago, I was working from home. Now I still work from home. You know, I don't see a lot of people. You know, generally we try to like socially distance. And so because of all of those things, I'm pretty much alone a lot.
Yeah.
And so speaking to the camera matters. I talk to my animals all the time. That matters. And it's like in that talking, that's where things come out for sure.
You said you generally like to social distance. Is that because of the pandemic or is that because this is your personality?
Yes.
I guess that means both.
I mean, this is one of those things, right? So my wife, she's a nurse practitioner, and you know, she has had the most difficult 2 years watching what she's had to work with. You know, she's because she was working in an express care clinic, then she moved over actually just to like a COVID screening center. That's what she was doing. You know, now she works in the emergency room of one of the local hospitals, and she's got PTSD from the last 2 years and how hard her job has become and the struggles of the pandemic. So yeah, like we both believe it's like, yeah, we should probably keep it to a minimum and as much you can. And I see the impact that has. And so that has kept us much more distanced. But at the same time, I'm pretty antisocial. I'm pretty much a homebody. And so it's been a good excuse.
So yeah, so she's experiencing this in the hospital. When you say this sense of feeling like maybe a sense of overwhelm or tragedy there, you're talking about cases, or are you talking about the new order of doing things?
I think cases in certain specific situations. I think the workload and the volume and the stress and just how like our hospital infrastructure is just not equipped to deal with a lot of that right now. Like a lot of those things.
So maybe there's not enough workers either? Is she facing some of that?
Yeah, I mean, understaffed for sure. She's having to work another 12-hour shift like that. Yeah, that.
But then there's a lot of ill cases coming through.
Yeah.
Because I guess she would be the one that would see that. Where regular people don't necessarily see that.
Yeah, and it's kind of every day, and so that it weighs on her a lot. So that's where I take a lot of that stuff very seriously, just because, if not for anything else, just that reason.
Yeah, you like this homesteading, lonely type of lifestyle. Would you call it lonely, or would you call it isolated?
I mean, it's. I wouldn't call it lonely, no. And I have lots of people I connect, lots of friends, you know, whether it's real friends that I have in town that I still connect with, or it's, friends that I have, in different parts of the
Online
country.
helps.
Yeah, like that helps. It makes such a difference in terms of just even like the homesteading world. It's just an amazing community of folks. And some of those relationships I have, I absolutely cherish. I mean, just last couple of days, the reason I'm down here in this neck of the woods is I'm just out visiting friends. And that to me has been awesome. And I've missed that. So there is that for sure. So I wouldn't want to overplay it as loneliness, but if you look at my day to day, right? Yeah. It's pretty solo.
If you're into homesteading, it does end up being, it can be lonely because you're at home, you're out in rural. So was this an acceptable lifestyle for you as you got into this? I imagine you haven't been doing this your whole life. I only imagine that because most people I talk to haven't. Was that part of the draw, that part of the lifestyle, or was it a sacrifice for the lifestyle?
I think it was just sort of an adjacent thing that I don't mind.
Okay.
So it didn't draw me in. I mean, what drew me in is back to that thing I said earlier of like really believing a need in more small farmers and really believing that, well, what am I doing if I'm not trying to find and help be a part of a solution to a big problem, and so that's my core motivation and kind of the shift. Other things become sort of like fringe benefits to it. And so if you to ask like, why did I want to try to start this farm and why am I doing that? That's rooted there. I think the other side of the equation of why do I like making videos? Why do I like creating content? Like why is that a focus for me? I mean, I look back to like when I was a kid, right? My happiest times as I was a kid, like what I used to do is I would sit in my room and draw comics or read comics. And that was like always my favorite thing. And then I'd share them with people and tell people about them. And I love doing that part too. It was like a process. Like you need to have both parts for it to be fulfilling. And I think I see what I do with like videos and stuff as a 100% extension of that. No doubt about it. Just adapted for modern times.
Yeah, I saw your comic. I think it was a TikTok or something. You showed it. Why didn't you be a professional comic? Why didn't you go down that route? Why aren't you making comic YouTube videos?
I'm just not that good at
drawing. Why aren't you on some comic podcast?
I think I'm pretty good at telling stories. Okay. I don't think I'm very good at drawing. I think like that's probably the biggest difference. Like when I was in high school, I went to art school afterwards. Like that was all right. I'm going to go to art school because I can draw somewhat, and that's where I went. Where you get there, and you're like, wow, I can't draw anything. And so I kind of went from being an animation major to like focusing more on like film as a big part of what I was doing creatively at school. And so that was where that shift happened, and then it's been kind of an extension of that ever since.
And you did the artwork on your hat, your logo.
Yeah, no, I mean I still draw, I still do stuff, but yeah.
So what's up with the bird on the bear?
It's two things. It's one, it's really a metaphor for the farm and like what I want it to be, where, and I know birds don't usually sit on bears' heads, but you go out you see like that symbiotic relationship between a rhinoceros and a cowbird and like what happens there, where the rhinoceros is there providing a meal, the bird is there removing the pests, and they're working together. I think that idea of animals working together, a farm being an ecosystem, it's something I fundamentally believe, and it's really how I try to manage the farm, that premise. Then it's also a metaphor for the relationship between my wife and me, actually. So I think our relationship often kind of plays a very similar role as well. And so that's what inspired it.
Are you the bear and she's the bird, or
I don't know,
or are you just two animals working together?
I think it switches from time to time. Probably physically, I'm much more the bear, and she's more the bird. but I think conceptually, I think the role shifts depending on the situation.
Was she on board with this rural farm lifestyle?
Yeah, I think yes, but I think there's like some like asterisks to it, right? So, she was the one who was always pushing organic and more sustainable living and changing how you do things. Like, and I remember like when we lived in New York initially, and she'd be like, "Let's go to the farmers." I'm like, "It's a big scam at the farmers market. They just ripping you off, and that's just an excuse to charge higher prices." And she's like, no. And eventually I, kind of did more learning, more reading, talking to a lot of farmers actually got me thinking differently. And so my worldview shifted. So she was the one who was there well before I was. And then we both had always said, yeah, we'd love to kind of, we were living in New York and then we lived in DC. Like, we'd love to, kind of find a nice quiet spot in the middle of nowhere and have that be kind of a place to really build something. I think for her, she still probably likes the creature comforts of the city more and like, wants that more. And so we've always tried to find a balance where she can kind of get that access and enjoy that, and kind of try to find a balance. So I'm probably more passionate about it now. She probably was more the instigator of it way back when.
So how do you get her the creature comforts?
I mean,
out in the country.
and it has been very tough the last couple of years, but like finding a way to go away to like Boston for the weekend or Montreal for the weekend, it's like that sort of thing, recognizing that has to be a part of the farm design. And you can't just say, nope, we got animals now, you can never make it work. Like, no, you got to make your animals work and find a way to make that work. Because again, we were talking about this earlier, right? You can't forget the human animal on the farm as well. So making sure that's sustainable is just as important as making sure, your chickens aren't just living in complete piles of poop all the time, or, you're providing the right clean water for your cattle. Like, you have to make sure you're doing all of those things, making sure that it works for the person and that, both people around, all the people who live there are able to have that experience in meeting their needs. That's important.
Yeah. So you guys are, you're just the two of you. You don't have any children, right?
No kids by choice. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What?
Oh, I mean, I was going to say, it was actually something we talked a lot about, like when we were dating, right?
Yep.
Like, do you want kids? I was always kind of like, I don't know, maybe, I guess. Like, sort of like
yeah, you can't
indifferent.
really.
I could probably be talked into it, but it wasn't like I was like, yeah, I want to be a dad. Let's go. And for her, she really didn't want kids.
Wow.
And so it was like one of those things where we absolutely kind of made it as a decision then. And I think some people are kind of like floored by that. And they're like, well, how can you like that? You'll change your mind later. And it's like, no, this is like, personal choice, major life decision. And much like we make all of those, this one feels good for us. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's for everybody, but it's for us.
No, it's actually refreshing. It threw me off a little bit. I had to say, wait, did he just say that? But it's refreshing that you would say, I said, do you have kids? And you said, no kids by choice. Because then it's just like, well, so many people want to have kids. Then the person's thinking, well, could they not? Do I need to feel pity here, or do I need to? What do I do? So you kind of help the. You help the other person figure out. See, you're a storyteller.
Yeah,
you're giving context,
and it's necessary because I mean, and look, so we've been married now a little over 10 years, right? And so, when you first get married, people, don't assume, but they just sort of make an assumption and go, and you're like, no, we're not. And they're like, oh, but you'll change your mind. Now that actually like I'm above 40, I think they're like, oh, well, maybe they are serious about this whole premise. Like, and so maybe it's by the time we're like in our 50s, they're like, they're committed. And okay, we're no use in trying to talk them into it. Because I actually found that was always the most awkward thing was like when you say, oh, no, we don't have them. Oh, okay. You want to have them a couple of years? Like, no. Like, and then it's like for some people, it's almost like, well, you're insulting our way of life by not wanting to have kids. And I personally try to be as tolerant as humanly possible and recognize that everybody's going to have different worldviews, and it's not going to match your worldview. And your job isn't to try to convince other people of their worldview is not the right one, but yours is. But rather, you're better off understanding their why and understanding what and like getting behind how they view the world, because you're going to actually be able to know that person better.
Yeah.
And be totally cool with not having the same point of view. That I think, I actually think, you want to talk politics now, right? In the broader world, the biggest problem we have is we are further and further losing the ability to disagree and have it be okay. And I think that's a big struggle.
Yeah, that's going to cause a problem. Speaking of disagreements and be okay, what sounds like, did you and your wife have this conversation before you got married?
Oh yeah, most definitely, multiple times.
How'd it come up? Come up casual, or is it kind of like, because what else mattered? That's a big thing to decide not to have kids or to have kids. What else mattered?
Yeah, I think
where you want to live.
That came up for sure. So the way it worked is, so my wife and I, we met. Started dating when we were both living in Hartford, Connecticut. And, we both grew up just outside of Hartford, like it's kind of like home area. And my wife was actually going off to grad school. She was going to Tulane to get a master's in public health. And when she did that, we basically were talking about it, and we're like, all right, we're getting engaged. Let's do it. And we had this conversation of, well, where are we going to live? And we knew that we'd have an engagement where she was living in one city and I was living in one. I knew I wasn't going to move to New Orleans, but it was like, well, the deal is you're going to have to go find a job somewhere else because I'm not coming back to Hartford. Because I actually loved Hartford. I had like dreams of being the mayor of Hartford. Like, and she was like, you need to find a job in Hartford or outside of Hartford. And we made a list of 5 cities, and it was my job to find that job, and then she'd come meet me wherever that was afterwards. And so we had both been like very committed urban dwellers essentially, because I'd say cities. It was, I think the list was New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Boston, and I think DC. Like those were the 5 cities on our list. And, basically like 2 weeks after that, I got a job in New York. And so I was like, I actually moved before she even left for school.
And it worked out.
It worked out. It worked out good.
Do you guys have, that's maybe a dumb question, but do you have disagreements now? Or differences of opinion now?
Oh, all the time.
You and your wife.
We are wildly different people, right?
Yeah.
And so all the time, and like here's an example, and it's very relevant to some of the things we were talking about earlier today. Like, I am a very functional person. I am very much like, does this work? Does it not work? Like that's what matters. She likes to have things beautiful. Beautiful does not serve a function to me. And so like one of the things has been like, she wants to beautify our farm, and I'm like, I don't want to waste my energy. I got so many other things I need to do or I could be doing. And what it actually kind of came to is me realizing, and back to that, hey, this farm needs to work for everybody who lives here. I got to match her at least halfway.
Yeah, I feel like we forget our spouses sometimes, or children.
It's hard to chase a dream when you have others who are connected to you so closely. But I actually wonder, is it really worth to chase that dream if you're not bringing them with you somehow?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm an epic meat eater. I wish my family would get on board. It'd be a much simpler life. But they like their veggies, and it's helped to use permaculture to where the animals are tilling the garden, say.
Yeah.
Then those two are working together, and I'm excited about the animals, and she's excited about the vegetables. Do you ever go back to your why to help you in these disagreements with your wife, these frustrating moments?
Oh, absolutely.
Textbooks, you just, that does always come out. It can't always come automatically to you. You're not perfect.
No, I screw up all the time, and usually have to be like, hey, I want to talk about something we were talking about yesterday. I was kind of, I came off a little hot there. My gut reaction was maybe a little overly strong. Sorry. Like, oh yeah,
this is an example of an apology.
I have a strong taste for crow.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Is that
you like eating crow? Like, you've never heard the expression?
Have you heard that, Jason? Yeah. Well, you're from California.
Yeah. Like, it's like you're making
an
apology. You're like, you're making apologies on me.
Hey, Matt, crow. Have you ever heard of that?
Eating crow? Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. maybe it's a thing. All right. Of course he says.
Well, I mean, actually, though, I want to go back to your meat eating point of or carnivore point of like, I know you firmly believe, right, that your farm is an ecosystem and you need to have the pieces fitting together. But like your family's an ecosystem too, right? Yeah. Like, and so for me, that's a very important fundamental belief in terms of how I try to operate and recognize that, if you have just a farm that's all pigs, it would be like a moonscape nightmare.
Yeah.
But if you have a farm with no pigs, you might actually have other problems. And so it's like you need to have a balance.
You would have major problems without pigs, Morgan.
That's working on it, man.
Number one problem with your farm.
I'm working on it.
You don't have any pigs. Yeah, what do you do with all the dead ducks? Come on, man. You gotta feed them something.
So I'll tell you what. No, it's actually good. So dead ducks, kind of the chicken feathers, like all the worst of the worst that I'm not going to feed my dog. I'm not going to try to find some sort of alternate use for. I actually have spots in the far reaches of the farm because got about 160 acres where I will give them to the wild. Yeah, and that's like let the coyotes, let the bears have it.
Don't feel shame for that. I feel like there is maybe some shame in that, as in that goes to waste or something. But I think it's the second best choice.
No, I mean, and I've had many public disputes with folks about kind of land management on my farm and bears, but one of the biggest reasons is I believe the wild animals are as important as my geese or as my cattle. And so making sure that they have space, making sure that they have habitat, and even feeding them like that, I have no shame whatsoever. I think a lot of people struggle with that concept, but to me, putting it out there and saying, okay, it's going to the wild, that's part of the tax too. And they're part of the farm just as much as I am or my guard dog is.
Yeah. Now, in theory, you're feeding the wild animals and they're going to be less hungry and not eat yours. So you're sharing with them. But I like how you took it even deeper. And you're like, well, why not feed the wild animals a little bit?
Well, and it's a balance.
Why do they have to be our enemy?
Yeah, I'm not doing it like I'm feeding them because there's a risk too, right? You don't want to attract wild animals.
Yeah.
So not to have it misconstrued that way.
No, you're not going out every day and giving them something.
But like, think about it, right? So we're mostly poultry on our farm. And so the poultry means that they spill grain, which means you have mice and rats and other things. And, that means I have barn cats to help manage that population. Also, if I let my mice and rat population get out of control, then, coyotes and bobcats and foxes, that's their primary source of food. And so what I want to do is discourage rodents migrating down from the pastures in the woods, coming down to the farm so that they stay up there, so that they keep the predators up. Like, that's all part of, like, as I talk about kind of that ecosystem balance of the farm, that's why the wild parts of the farm are really important or as important.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes we need to put our feelings away because you might have had a name for that duck. But really the most eco thing to do is to feed that to the forest as opposed to like burying it in the ground.
Yeah, I mean,
something's going to get it in the ground too. You're feeding the microbiome and micro life, but
it's all different degrees and different ways to redistribute things. I mean, you want to get to a why? Like, I've told this story in videos before, but the reason why I ultimately wanted to kind of become the farmer and do this is because I know how I want to die. So I want to be 104 years old and have my wife pass away quietly in her sleep at age 100. And then I want to go pack myself a sandwich into the walk to the far back reaches of the pasture, sit under a tree, eat my sandwich, wait for a bear to come eat me, and have that be the end of it. And I'm just like put back into the farm. It's
that's
not like
your dream.
That's my, like, I know it sounds horrible and gross and morbid, but like I feel like if I got to that place where I'm able to walk to the back pasture at 104 and get eaten by that bear, I've done everything right. And to be returned back to that land through a bear, I'd also have done everything right. So yeah.
What kind of sandwich?
That's a detail I've never thought of.
Last meal kind of talk here. Come on, you got to think about this stuff.
Yeah, I probably should.
Come
think
on,
about that
the
better.
peanut butter and
Yeah.
jelly. Is that your classic, or are you having like a
I'd have to
fried
be better
chicken
than-
sandwich?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Reuben.
Some sort of sad turkey sandwich just doesn't feel like it would cut it.
Sad.
You're right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got to go out with some glory. Something maybe that would attract the bear.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, some like
Peanut butter and honey.
Yeah, there you go.
So back to the disagreements or whatever. You have a disagreement. How does it help you to understand the why? So she wants this beauty and you want this practicality. What's that thought process look like when you start to think about her why?
So I think part of it is actually zooming back. So is it an argument about how messy I've got the barn right now? Or is it an argument about her not feeling like the farm is her like home as well and she has that place as well? And me conceding, does that not give her a better way to be connected to the farm? It's taking her perspective. And I think this gets down to it. It's like, to understand someone else's perspective, you need to understand someone else's why. And so if I know that that's what makes her feel calm and that's what makes her feel happy, like that becomes a much more motivating why for me to, figure out how to clean up our paths and, keep some of the permaculture orchard from being overgrown, because that ultimately will make her happier, which makes our farm more cohesive.
Yeah.
That's motivating for me. Now, all right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do the things I need to do to make that happen. And so, but if it was just simply because, this needs to look pretty, and I'm just operating on that and not appreciating the why for my wife and then ultimately the why for me, like, it's so much harder to get motivated.
Does she think about the why for you?
Oh yeah, most definitely. 100%.
And why is that?
I mean,
She's a kind person, or you make it very clear?
yeah, like, so let me give you an example. She is a private person She does not want to, like, if it was her choice, we wouldn't be making videos and putting them on the internet, like that sort of thing. Like, you know, she occasionally will show up in a video, but like really doesn't like to be on camera. But she knows that, again, back to that idea of like, for me to feel whole, I need to communicate. For me to feel whole, I need to create. And like, there's been times in our life, like, you know, go back 7-8 years ago when I was just working a job and I wasn't doing those things, where I was pretty unhappy. And she really saw that. And so she sees how the creation makes me so happy. And that's such a core part of who I am. Mm-hmm. That's where she, like, you know, kind of relaxes and like, all right, yeah, go make your dumb videos. Like it's like, you know, it really does become that. And so I genuinely believe she understands most of my why.
I got in trouble once because I went and made a video and I talked about how I was hurting. It was physically or something. It could have been my reactive arthritis, my Lyme or something. And she approves the videos before they go out. She got so mad. She's like, when I asked you how you were doing, you said you were doing fine. Uh-oh. Yeah, don't ever make that mistake.
It's amazing. But that's where, again, so I would never do a lot of live video because I think I would make that sort of misstep a lot. But but most things I do aren't live. And so to shoot a video and let that be the place where I can be as raw as I possibly be. I don't care what I say. I could say something that could offend people. I could say something that would be a horrible thing, you know, to think about. Like, this is like me writing in my diary. Like, this is that. But then I have to then go edit. I have to then filter. I have to think about how I frame it. I have to craft it into a story. I have to do these things. And so it's not completely unfiltered and raw when people see it.
No.
And so that means I have an accountability to, if I'm feeling something or thinking something that I haven't conveyed to her, that I shouldn't say to 100,000 people, but I should say, you know, directly to her first, I will then have that opportunity and luxury between the time I shoot and the time I post to do that.
And I think my situation where was the video actually went out, because sometimes she won't approve it before it goes out. So it's like already 200 or 300 people, oh, you know, giving me pity or something. And
yeah, man, I don't know how you do the schedule you do.
You know, I used to get, it was hard when she used to edit. You were talking about this raw, and she would get these raw clips, and she is also very kind, so she can edit good, but I'll say she's not a good editor because you're too kind. You have to be brutal. It makes it better to cut, but if you're a kind person, you can't cut.
Murder your darlings,
and,
right?
And especially if she's like editing somebody else, she's editing me, and I'm having this raw spiel. And then she gets mad at me because I didn't say it right or this and that. And I'm just like, I just cut that part. But she can't cut it because she's too nice. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So people could get into this. Yeah. Does your wife approve the videos before they go out?
No. There are sometimes a video that I'll make where I think she's really going to want to see it or comment on it or have that. But it's like, I make the call, do I want to pre-screen it with her or not? But it's not like, she probably doesn't watch half the videos, to be honest.
Yeah, but you doing a little TikTok about returning the pie plate to this Californian. She don't need to approve that. That's
right.
If you started talking about this, I bet she approved that one where you talked about your crush. That passed away.
That's when I want you to see
a little sensitive to her.
Or the video I actually made a video like explaining to people why they don't see her around the farm much, and like
she probably needs to see that.
Yeah, I absolutely showed her that beforehand. Yeah, no, but yeah, me explaining how I put cameras on animals, no, like it's not necessary.
So it sounds like she's supportive of this. It's just that she doesn't necessarily want to be on the video.
Oh, she's 100% supportive. Yeah, no, she doesn't like to be like, it's personality difference, right? Whereas, you know, I'm comfortable in front of a whole bunch of people on stage, you know, like I kind of like to perform, right? Like I have that sort of like vibe to me. And so she gets that she's like that, and I get that she's, you know, doesn't like to be the center of attention. And so, you know, don't try to force that on the other person. I think that's an important thing to try to balance.
I noticed you've done something here. When you told me you don't have kids, you said by choice. So that to me is saying you're giving me context. When you said you social distance, you then really quickly gave me the why. You started talking about how she is working in the hospital. And so that's going to not only disarm me or somebody else, it's giving context where you come from.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
It sets it up to have an easy disagreement with you.
Look, I don't expect most people to agree with what I see, but I do expect people not to like. What I hate the most is when people like other me, right? Where it's like, you're one of these people. He's one of this thing. He's this thing. I'm not a person who might be thinking about things differently than you, which 100% can happen. But he's one of those city folk who does this, or like, or he's one of those YouTubers. Like, I hate that. But like, people who disagree with me, but they know where I'm coming from, all day. And so I want to try to make it as easy for people to do that as possible. And I know I have a responsibility to make it easy for people to understand and not be ambiguous. I think that clear communication is important.
Yeah. You have to work on getting your why out there. And you work on understanding their why.
I try to do my best, very
Yeah.
best, I mean, it's like, I'd probably do a poor job at times for sure and such, but I do try to do my best. I mean, I don't know how much, like, I've had a lot of drama with bear hound hunters around my farm. And,
I saw that.
After my initial couple of dust ups and incidents, I made it a point to go out bear hound hunting and like spend a morning like going out with hound hunters and seeing how they do it and understand why, because I feel like I can't be out there regularly criticizing them without at least taking maybe not a mile, but a quarter mile walk in their shoes. And so that's where it comes from.
So this is for those that people don't know. And you've had bear hunting dogs get on your property. And in Vermont, that's actually illegal. Or no, it's legal.
It's legal. So yeah, so
it's actually legal.
Yeah, so the way it works is, bear hounding is legal in Vermont in certain times of year, and so is raccoon hounding. I've had issues where hounds have pursued animals onto my property, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
But the rules of pursuit say if their animals in pursuit, they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to go get in there, retrieve their animals, all that. And so it's sort of in the state of Vermont, it sparked up a debate over the last 6 months or so, kind of driven by some incidents that happened on my farm.
Really?
Yeah.
Whole statewide. 'Cause
Statewide
of your
now.
farm.
Oh yeah.
Instances happen on your farm. You talked about this on your channels?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've made a few videos about it. I've gotten praised in some levels, criticized, like the Meat Eater podcast. Speaking of carnivore, like they hit me pretty hard a couple of weeks ago about it.
Wow.
Because I think it's weird because I'm a hunter. I hunt deer. I hunt turkey. I have bagged many a varmint. Like, that's, I'm totally fine with it. I believe that, back to that, hey, we're an ecosystem. Sometimes you need to have predators in your ecosystem, and sometimes the human needs to be the predator. But I also don't think they actually need to hunt bear. And I actually think the disruption that bear causes on the land is really important to the ecosystem. They're almost the equivalent of pigs in sort of a more traditional forest context in terms of the disruption and disturbance they cause. So by my choice, if I'm the one responsible for this farm and managing it, I want to say, no, I don't want people hunting bear on my land. But based on the laws, like, that's not the case. And so that's what's spun up the debate for sure.
You said you actually tried to experience bear hunting so you could put yourself in. How'd you do that?
So after I put out the first couple videos, a guy actually on the other side of the state said, I think you got it wrong, but I'd love to take you out and give you a chance to kind of see what it's like and why it's important to my family. And I just jumped at the opportunity. I mean, like, yes, man, please, I'd love to, because I think, like, again, walking that step in his shoes and seeing how this is a family tradition. It's something he does with his son and his wife, and how it's like a Saturday morning ritual for them at a certain time of year where they're going through sweeping cornfields for bear, and like why it's so great and why it has that heritage. I got to experience that, and I see it, and I understand the why. It doesn't mean I believe that is more important than my private property rights. But I understand where bear hounders are coming from. I understand why they do what they do, why they might have passion for it, why they might see some guy like me as some liberal idiot city guy coming in and disrupting their way of life. And so I think that was an important thing to do.
And it helped you?
Helped me 100%, yeah.
Yeah, you're still for the cause, for your cause. But how'd that help you then?
Well, I've softened my point of view. I came out.
Okay.
I came out guns a-blazing. So I had two incidents. First
Okay.
incident was actually the middle of the night. Raccoon hounders were actually going through like my front yard. Like wake up,
Yeah.
my guard dog's going crazy. My geese are going crazy. I'm like, what's going on here? And I have like a pack of dogs and dudes with flashlights walking through. And so that was one incident. Then another incident where a bear hounder treed a bear on my farm and like came to me. So to his credit, he came to me, but then I recorded going to retrieve it and put that out there. Kind of in those incidents, I was basically saying, hey, we got to stop bear hounding or hound hunting, or pursuit hound hunting in Vermont. But then after kind of experiencing it, what I've been pushing for now is essentially saying, no, you just got to have control of your dog. Like you can't be 2 miles away from your dog and say you have control. You can't go on private property where you don't have permission. Like, and trying to find a way where it's, again, compromise.
You went with them. I would have had this question after watching your video. How do they control their dog? And you went with them. So how do they? I don't know. I'm not a hunter like you.
So it's mostly training, but it's actually pursuit. They don't. I mean, I will argue they don't have control of their dog, and so this is where I see a different point of view just from that experience. They typically are going to put a GPS collar on their dog,
Okay.
and set the dog loose. And typically they'll be in their truck and have like an iPad screen mounted to the dash. And the iPad screen, you can see like little dots moving around, going in different areas. And usually I think the limit in Vermont is 6 dogs that you can set out at once. And they're watching where they're going, seeing where their scent is. They'll let them loose in one spot, follow them around, maybe pick them up again, go to another spot, follow them around. And so it's more that they're pursuing their dogs than controlling their dogs. Their dogs are going to go where they think they should go based on scent.
Yeah.
Which gets to my argument against it, which gets to why I'm uncomfortable with something like that, to say like, well, you're just kind of letting it loose and hoping for the best. There's all sorts of things that could go wrong. I'm lucky because most of my poultry area is fenced in with like a 5-foot high fence, and I got a guard dog, so it keeps my birds safe. But I could easily see my duck setup from 3 years ago becoming like hound food very easily. And so, I'm kind of sympathetic to that as well.
Yeah. So people could shoot a bear on your property or not?
They could, at least now, technically, because of some of the things I've done, they can't, but at certain times, like when I had the incidents that happened in August and September, they could.
And what I mean by that they can in Vermont.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody's not set up or put up certain restrictions,
Yeah.
you can go on other people's property and shoot.
Yeah, well, Vermont's got weird posting laws too. So, I don't know, weird. It's different than a lot of other places in that most land is assumed open for hunting unless it's posted that it's not, and to be properly posted. So, like I posted my land when I first bought the farm, but then you have to update all your signage every year. And you have to have a sign every 400 feet along the perimeter and at all corners. And so I had updated my signs like the spring of 2020 and had incidents in the summer and early fall of 2021. And so by virtue just of that window, as well as, you're tacking, signs to a tree with a stapler, squirrels, wind, vandals, those all can break it open and then make you not compliant with being posted. So there's a lot of burden on the landowner to post. And I mean, now I'm like meticulous about it based on experiences.
How do you refresh a post? It's no different. It's the same sign.
You have to go on and date it.
Oh, you have to date it.
And you have to go to the town clerk's office and
my.
register with the town clerk each year.
Is this how it is in all the states?
No. This is like I said, this is a unique Vermont thing.
Wow. Okay. Back to the end. We've gone forward, and now we're gonna keep backing up. The NFT thing. I said to you because you had said before the show, "Oh, I don't know if the internet's ready for this." You were probably meaning the homestead, or I don't even know if your audience is homesteaders. Are they? They're just like.
I think some of my audience are. I think some aren't. I think most of my audience really cares about animals and doing the right thing by animals. I think most of my audience likes a good story. I think they're curious, at the very least, curious about farms. But I don't think I actually have, like, if I compared my audience to what I perceive as your audience, I think it's probably less like true full-on homesteaders.
You keep referring to stories, and maybe that's where I was getting at with your I'm not having kids by choice. You just told a story. If you say I'm not having kids, there's an open loop there, Morgan, and people don't know the end of the story. Mm-hmm. But you quickly took that open loop and closed it. You told a story right there in that. And then when we talked about the social distance thing, you quickly talked about when you're giving these whys and your wife working in the hospital, you're also giving a story. So maybe in some ways, these stories are disarming people.
Possibly. I just love telling stories.
And they're certainly given a why.
Yeah. I mean, I love reading. I love listening to stories. I love watching things. Stories are always been so important to me since, I don't know, probably forever.
What's the last story you read?
Last story I read, I guess, just even coming over here, I was listening to a podcast all about Bart Simpson mania from, like early 90s,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And just it was a woman who kind of went through and broke it all down and told the whole story of that, and like how it was a culturally important point in our country's history, and sort of how it sort of set up a pivot for a lot of things, and it was a good story.
Bart Simpson's still around? Simpson's still going?
Of course.
It's like
yeah.
the longest
I
running
forget.
show
Yeah, you live
ever.
in a time capsule.
No, I used to really like The Simpsons, but then
I don't know. It's not as good to me as it used to be.
I went into a time capsule.
Well, it's funny. So actually, Matt Groening, who's the guy who created The Simpsons, he was the guy who first motivated me to like start drawing comics. And it wasn't because of The Simpsons. He actually wrote this book, like it was a collection of comic strips called School is Hell. And it was just like this like little
School is Hell.
School is Hell. And because he had a whole series.
Yeah, okay,
he had
I'd read that.
Love is Hell, Work is Hell. I forget, but like School is Hell, which, when you're a 10-year-old or 11-year-old and you discover that in the bookstore and you're like, these things look like The Simpsons. I'm curious about this book. And like that book just sort of like blew my mind, and like it got me motivated to draw comics. It got me to being kind of a person who was sort of like a little bit anti-authority streak, like really ratcheted up a level. But yeah, it all came from Matt Groening.
What was the last story you watched?
That's a good one.
You got Netflix?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, we do have Netflix. Oh, you know what? Boba Fett, Book of Boba
Oh, yeah?
Fett. Oh, yeah.
That's what you like? The sci-fi stuff?
I mean, I don't know. I've just always been a big Star Wars fan. But I like sci-fi. I like a mix of stuff. Letterkenny's probably my favorite current TV show right now.
Uh-huh. And do you ever talk about this on your?
I don't talk about it, but I think one of my things a lot of my videos are known for is I add clips to like everything.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I don't I'm not going to be like, hey, let me tell you about this thing I saw on Letterkenny, but I might say something and then cut a 3-second clip from Letterkenny into it. That I do all the time.
I'm not being rude. I'm actually looking up a screenshot. I wanted to ask you about it because you asked it. I was doing a little research going into this. You had asked your audience for questions. You were going to do a little Q&A.
Okay.
And it was all about ducks. And that's when I had to text you. Morgan, we're probably not going to talk about ducks. Do you care? Do you love to talk about ducks?
I love talking about the animals, so for sure. Ducks, geese.
Are you disappointed?
It's funny.
Are you disappointed we're not talking about ducks?
No. It's funny though. I think a lot of people think of me as being known for ducks. I actually would say the animal I know the most about and most passionate about is goose, because I actually think it's like the most sustainable form of poultry. They are amazing for the land. Love their personalities. Yeah, I'm a big goose guy.
Do you do a Christmas goose?
Actually, this year we didn't because I sold out of them all.
What'd you have for? You are a farmer.
We had a
You are a farmer.
We had a cull duck instead.
Where is this? So but you like to eat duck?
Oh yeah.
I mean goose.
Both. Yeah.
Which one do you like better?
Probably goose. I mean, I find meat wise they're pretty similar. I think the difference is it's just one's chicken scale and one's turkey scale.
So I was going to go through these. I wanted to ask you some of these questions these people asked you.
All right.
I mean, I skipped through all the duck one. Not that I have a problem. I got no problems with ducks. It's just I think we're more than that. That's where I'm going with my homesteading lately. Is we're more than just food growers. Homesteading is a lifestyle that includes we like to watch the Olympics. They're on right now, so it's probably TiVo in it over there or whatever it is. And Seinfeld came to Netflix, and so that's kind of exciting.
That's actually
We can
that's been one of my comfort
go through it
shows.
in
Like
order.
when I'm dead tired and I don't want to do anything, an old episode of Seinfeld. That's always good. Yeah.
Okay, I circled some of these. Would you ever accept free help?
Probably in very limited instances, yes, but fundamentally, no. And there's actually a couple of reasons why. So
You're a why, man.
I'm
Go
going to give
ahead.
you the why. Yeah, like I think just a short answer would be insufficient. So, number one, I actually think that it's important to pay people, and particularly if you think about like farm work. If farm work has value,
Yeah.
and you're leveraging primarily, I'm not saying nobody can ever help you out ever, but primarily a free labor source in all times. Like, I have like viewers volunteering. I actually think that is doing a disservice to farm workers.
Okay.
I think, and then the other thing is, I don't know. I find it like it's hard to teach and do.
Yeah.
And I struggle doing both at the same time.
They went on to say, someone who would just like to spend 3 days of helping you for general work on your farm. Would you do that? I don't think 3 days is helpful. You'll spend 3 days training them.
Exactly. Like a 3-month internship, I could
Okay.
see being more open to doing. A 3-day or a week, like I think you're exactly right. It's like I would be showing you what to do. I'd have to be doing everything with you, and it'd probably take me 30% longer to do that versus me just going my most efficient autopilot or me doing it while I shoot a video.
Yeah.
And so, it'd become a net negative.
Would this be a paid internship then?
Oh, I 100% would believe in a paid. I would not.
What would
do
you
it.
pay an hour? Or is that how you would structure it?
I think that's tough because the question is, does it include housing and does it not? What's the current market rates? I think right now, when you think about hiring folks, it's harder. It's harder than it has ever been, at least in my lifetime, to peg like what's a good salary for something, because supply and demand.
Are you going to hire somebody this summer?
I don't know. I don't think I necessarily need it, especially on full time. But I would like to, and the reason I'd like to is, it's hard to leave the farm. And I think there's more things I'd like to try to do where I can like leave for a day or two. Not like I want to leave.
You had to hire a farm sitter to come down here.
Right, exactly.
And you have to hustle back to get
and then hustle back. And like, so to have somebody who's regularly working on the farm and helping with me, I think one, it would help me scale up the farm faster. But then two, it becomes somebody I can actually rely on a little bit better.
I like you said that. Scale the farm faster, because I was about to say to you, because you told me earlier your farm profited $7,500. That's really good going into like 2 years. I mean, you can't live on that, but that's good that you're not losing $75,000, let alone $7,500. You're actually earning after expenses, not counting land, $7,500, something like that.
Yep.
So this is how a lot of people look at hiring people. How can you afford to hire somebody if you only bring it in $7,500? You nailed it. And people have asked me, how do you afford? Let's say we had somebody helping us in the house after we got back from the Great American Farm Tour. How do you afford Anna? That's how I afford Anna, because then, like you said, that farm worker helps you scale, and suddenly you're not making $7,500 that you had to pay them out of. They've scaled you to $70,000.
Yes.
And then you can give them a fine salary.
Exactly. And it's recognize like, what does that let you do? So if I have somebody, for example, doing all my, I wouldn't structure it this way, but just for argument's sake, doing all my duck stuff, and I had somebody doing all of that, and I could make it work between the hatching eggs I sell and the eggs I sell and the meat I sell. Like, if I could make that all work and having somebody hired, which if you look at the numbers, that's not going to work. But if I did that, I could then just focus on the cattle and expanding out the cattle situation.
Yeah.
That would help me. Or, okay, I got to fence in 30 acres of pasture this spring. If I hire somebody to help me do that, am I able to get that done in a week? And then I can make, a couple more things and do a couple more projects, which will then help me, whether it's be able to make more videos or add more animals or something like that. Does that free me up to do it? That's how I feel like I have to think about it. And so like I do pretty strictly like a P&L for multiple levels of my profit and loss for multiple levels of my farm. So I have everything all together, which includes money that comes in from like social media content or that sort of thing. But then I need to look at each enterprise. And so the goose enterprise, the duck enterprise, the tree operation, which is actually one of my most profitable things I do, like those each have to like sort of work or not on their own merits. And then I kind of bring it all together.
Is the content creation the biggest one?
By far.
It's your centerpiece.
It is.
Do you have a problem with content creation being the centerpiece of your farm?
Yeah. I mean, problem's not the right way to... If you want to talk about things
you
I
have a
feel
struggle
embarrassed
about
about
that?
or a little sheepish
Oh.
about, yeah. I mean, because it's not
Okay.
what I set out to do. Like, when
Really?
when I set out to do all this, my vision was I want to have a farm, like a good operating small farm. I always knew, I want to use social media to help me market my farm. And so when I have products to sell, I have an
that's where
audience
this
to
started
sell.
from?
That's where it all started from. And so that's how I got started. And what I mean, like if I'm going to be really blunt and honest about myself, I am a better video maker and storyteller than I am a farmer. I'm still very much learning as a farmer, but I think that those two things are they work together. And so it's what works for me. I don't think it works for everybody though.
You told me earlier, though, you don't make content around drawing and cartoons because you don't feel like you're good at it. But now you're telling me you're not good at farming, but you're making content surrounding that. What made
No, that's
you
not what I
push
said, but
through?
that's not what I said
Okay.
though. So what I said was I don't make comics because I'm not good at making comics. I make videos because I think I'm good at making videos.
Yeah.
I'm learning to be a farmer, and I make videos about learning to be a farmer. So I could see I could make videos about making comics, but the comic unto itself doesn't stand alone as it good enough in my eyes. That's
You didn't
does
feel
that-
like you were a good enough drawer.
yeah.
You went to art school and it kind of set you back. So now you feel like it's okay. Okay, so that's what helped you push through to make content around farming, is that I'm going to make content around my learning curve.
Because I think a lot of other people back to a why, right? I believe the world needs more small farmers. And I think for people to see that you can go into this without an agricultural background and you can learn what you need to do and take those steps, and you're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. I think showing that's really important to motivate more small farmers.
Have you done that?
I think so. I mean, I get, emails and letters from kids who are interested in starting farms now because they watch our videos. I get from adults who are working to, even if it's not as a farm, but like just a homestead scale, I get those sorts of messages all the time. And so that's some of the most gratifying communication I can possibly get in seeing that, for sure.
Does it make you as happy as you imagined you would be if you inspired somebody?
Oh, more so.
Yeah.
I again, back to the why did I start making videos? I started making videos to make it easier to sell duck eggs.
Yeah.
So that's an order of magnitude in terms of value. I feel like that's, leaps and bounds above just selling duck eggs.
Yeah. Well, when I saw your early content, I knew you were going places.
Oh, now you're going to make me blush.
Because it's so good. I mean, it's funny. It's a good story. You put a lot of effort into it. There's a lot of folks not putting the effort in, and you can maybe still get traction, but you have put in the hard work and are going places. You're going to actually, I'm surprised it took you this long to quit your day job.
It's because, I mean, look, I feel like I had a very good day job. And sort of, to a certain extent, kind of golden handcuffs, but also so up until 3 weeks ago, I've always had a job working for somebody. From age 16, when I started bagging, or actually working as a cashier and then getting demoted to bagging groceries. Through college, I had jobs working for people. Immediately after college, I actually skipped my college graduation to go work a job. I have always quit one job to immediately start another job my entire adult life. And so the prospect of being self-employed was 100% terrifying to me. And so I needed to get to a point, I think, where it was just not going to be sustainable to keep trying to do it all.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately pushed me to actually take the leap.
That's probably a pretty safe way to go about it, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Or did you wreck yourself? Did you wreck your health?
no, but I could see, how I was just running on fumes by the end of 2021, and seeing the things I wanted to do even being like one level above that. I mean, like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. Do you find yourself self-disciplined now that you don't have a job and you actually have more time?
Yeah, almost overly so.
Okay.
Like, I remember my friend, like this, like I said, this is week 3. My first like 2 weeks, I had like Google calendars that were pretty much scheduled from like, 6 a.m. every morning all the way to like, about 8:30 at night. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man? You don't have to do this.
Was that a fear because you were stepping out in entrepreneurship and oh my gosh, I got to really hustle?
I mean, a little bit of fear, a little bit of knowing me, like, I need structure. Like, I was always like, I got sent to Catholic school to give me structure, right? Yeah. Like, I got like, kind of like help me make sure I didn't like go off path. And so, probably a little bit of fear, probably also recognizing myself a little bit. And so I've tried to relax it a little bit, but I still try to like, all right, I'm going to schedule time for myself to go work out, or I'm going to schedule time for myself to now just write. And now I'm going to schedule time for me to shoot this next video or edit. Like, and so I do try to block out just chunks just to give my day structure, just because I, out of habit, need it.
Are you a natural entrepreneur?
I don't know. I mean, like I just confessed, I never really worked for anybody. Worked for somebody. It sounds
like maybe this wasn't. It didn't sound like you're in your heart an entrepreneur trying to find a way. It sounded like you saw this problem and you wanted to inspire small farmers, and it seems like you've discovered that entrepreneur is the best way to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a creator than an entrepreneur. Like, I think I'm a very creative person. I love creating things.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at inspiring myself and even others to like help me make stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm like entrepreneurial minded, but I also have, worked a lot for a number of years in business. And so that helps me understand what you need to do to actually have a good business.
Yeah. You mentioned the Catholic school there. We had Brandon Sheard on the podcast, big time Catholic guy. Darcy Isabella, you ever heard of her? She's got a minimalist channel.
Not familiar, no.
On YouTube, and just visited them in Florida. One thing about that is, I don't know if it's a Catholic thing, but what's interesting and intriguing about that lifestyle is it does seem to bring order. It brought something to where they center their life around. And it's something, although I'm not Catholic, I could appreciate.
Yeah, well, so I'm not Catholic. I mean, my mother is Catholic, my father is Jewish. And so, like, I was always raised kind of like, I had Christmas and I had Hanukkah, and it was sort of like, kind of like balance it all out. And like, we weren't very pretty, non-religious family. I got sent to Catholic school as like a discipline, and like almost exactly what you're describing, because it was like my parents, like both of them were like, "No, he needs this." So that's there, and just it was good because I got to see something culturally up close. Read the Bible multiple times, got that kind of experience. But then as an adult today, I'm definitely a devout agnostic, where I just kind of see the world and believe. How can I can completely respect that other people have like super strong faith. Like, it's funny, I was just staying with my friends, Jessica Sowards and Jeremiah down in South Carolina from Roots and Refuge. And like, they are very, very religious people, very devout, very committed to, living life in Christ. Like they're super passionate about that. I'm not, but we can be good friends and talk about those things even, and again, it gets back to like the respect and understanding that, I might not see the world they see it and vice versa. And so I don't know that my view's right. I don't know anybody's view's right. I don't believe that you can like lock in. And so that's just how I see the world personally.
And there you go again, giving me context. You say You didn't just say you're agnostic. You said you're a devout agnostic.
Which is,
You're
I
always
say that
getting
with
this-
irony,
this
right? Because
context.
like, okay, I'm somebody who doesn't know what it all is. But I
almost
devoutly
said,
believe that.
You almost said evangelical agnostic.
Yeah, I actually should say that's a better line. That's better than devout agnostic.
You're trying to spread the agnostic.
We should all be
faith
agnostic.
or lack of.
Yeah.
So help me out. Agnostic is there is a God, but He's not involved in our lives.
Maybe I'm not agnostic then, so maybe not even that evangelical. I believe I don't know. I mean, I imagine there are much greater things than me for sure, but what or how or what shape or form, I have no idea. I doubt I'll ever be able to know. Let me just focus on living my life of treating people with kindness and doing the right thing, and maybe leaving the world a little bit better place than when I found it. Like if I just focus there, I don't know. Like if you look at most religions, right? You know, those are generally some important tenets. And so I just kind of focus there. I don't know. And I don't try to invest too much time and energy in figuring it out.
Yeah, so you're not quite evangelical agnostic yet then. To say you haven't figured it out, you're probably not going to be evangelical.
Yeah.
So, but them having a daily mass or a weekly mass or something they go to and center themselves around, Darcy having acknowledged like there's a saint for every day, this like
Every other day, but yeah.
this centerpiece. That's something that's appealing, and of course there might be some drawbacks, but you can't just being appealed and drawn to having this centerpiece that is like higher. It feels higher, loftier, bigger meaning or something. I thought about it in my own life. Well, what's the centerpiece for well, it's the family cow, I guess. but that doesn't seem quite as
our daily milk.
No, really, like if Brandon sees to it that they go to daily mass and center their life around it, like he really talks about centering his life around that. Well, we center our life around the family cow. Give us this there daily bread.
Yeah.
I call my bank account, my nickname for my bank account is not bread and our business bank account. It's not bread and butter. It's beef and butter.
Yeah, right.
And that's what the family cow gives us.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually agree with the role of ritual and how important that is.
Yeah.
However you might find that it works best for you personally. Like, I actually think that my life has been the happiest because I have the ritual of my chores. Like, and I'm sure you find this too. Like, going out and having things that I do as ritual that I'm like, always saying hi to Toby Dog the same way. And I get to like greet the barn cats and the ducks. I'm always saying release the quacking. Like, those are, and again, I don't mean to equate this and offend people saying like, oh, I think this is religion unto itself, but there's something so soothing of having ritual. Even the last couple of days where I've been visiting friends and having a great time, there's a certain chunk of me that's kind of happy to be going back home very soon so that the next morning I can get up and do the farm, because that's like where I feel my most comfort. And that ritual is such a good sort of centerpiece for my day to day. I think there is something in that.
Yeah, ritual is a good word for it. As I explore this and think about our own lives and maybe even another possible positive for homesteading is that you get these rituals that maybe you feel comfortable with or that are super practical. Talk about a practical ritual, milking a cow.
It's funny because so the last 3 places I've been. So I'm here where obviously you're a devout cow milker.
Evangelical.
Evangelical, absolutely, yeah. I was just down with Meg and Ben Holler for a night hanging out with them, and they just recently got a milk cow. And Jess and Jeremiah, they just got milk cows as well, multiples. And I got to say, like, seeing that in action, my gears are turning. I'm like, yeah.
I'm telling you.
It's been amazing.
I'm telling you. I say pigs for everyone, but it's got to be the cow for everyone. Because listen,
cow feeds the pig, right?
I got to tell you this, these last 2 years has awakened me to, supply chain issues. There's going to be a grain supply chain issue. Yeah. Why wouldn't there be? That's not cuckoo talk anymore, what I just said. Supply chain issues, that entered our vernacular in the last 2 years. That was never in our vernacular. Social distancing.
Go 3 or 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, right? You had it was like just-in-time supply chain was like a buzzword you would hear
Yeah.
go back 4 years ago. Now it's like it's a
Yeah.
cause of,
It's
of
like
anxiety.
Corona beer sales drop.
Yeah, is that
'Cause
even
of
on
the
the market
coronavirus.
anymore? I don't even.
So another one is, so there's supply chain issues, there's social distancing. These are all new terms. These are food shortages. That entered our vernacular. I mean, so where was I going with that? It's going to happen with grain. I mean, but it's not going to happen with grass. The sun is going to keep shining. I mean, if the sun quits shining, we got way bigger problems.
I think that's exactly.
We're all screwed. But the grass grows, and a cow can thrive 100% on the grass. You know, the pig, you need the grain. The chickens, you need the grain. But a cow doesn't. So that's why we're expanding our pastures. We're cutting into the forest. That's why we're eating more beef and more lamb and focusing there. Because look, Morgan, don't get me started. The cow, you go out, we'll get 2-3 gallons of milk from a couple of cows that are 100% on grass. Morgan, that's 16. I shouldn't do math in public. That's what you said earlier. That's like up to 24 pounds of food.
Completely.
I didn't need to put it in a jar. I didn't need to put it in a freezer. I just went out in there and harvested. And actually, I learned, as being a carnivore, we would not only survive, we would thrive if it came to that, and we had to only drink cow's milk.
Yeah, well, so
we
right.
talk about save a lot of time.
Oh no, I mean, I think you're right about that. I think the other thing I'd throw out. So 2 things that I know you touch on occasionally, but I would say, wow, I'd love to see you talking about it more. One are geese.
Yeah.
Because back to, poultry, right? And you're the chicken ninja master and all that good stuff. My geese are in the summer months are getting about 90% of their diet from the pasture. Yeah. And so when I think about what's a more sustainable form of poultry, there's nothing better than the goose. Because while they're not technically ruminants, they're acting like ruminants essentially.
They are.
And so I would throw that one out there. And then the other one is perennial tree crops. I think, one of the best things we grow on our farm are trees. And while it's probably the least interesting and least sexy content I make, and, I don't put enough videos out just because it's just not as engaging people, tree geeking, I think, is the most important thing. From a farm business perspective, my most profitable thing I do is growing trees. From a, farm future perspective, the fact that I have 600 trees that are mixed between mulberry and apple and chestnut and butternut and black locust, that to me is such an important part of the future of my farm, that if I can have those perennial tree crops, then I have something to go along with the milk, essentially. And I think that that's an important thing.
It sounds like that's something that's going to be important for small farms. So it does sound like you need to make that content, whether it's going to be popular or not.
I do probably about a half dozen chestnut videos a year. Because actually that's probably the tree I'm most passionate about. But you also can't just jam the vegetables down people's throat or they'll never eat it.
I'm going to just read these titles, and if you want to tell an interesting story around these, you go for it. Should I feed my dog eggs? Don't trust this duck. My homestead is a dumpster fire. What does my guard dog do all day? So you go off on one of those.
Yeah. So my homestead is a dumpster fire is something I often feel like, and I think a lot of people do it. I mean, Jason, I'm sure you have and it's just you feel this sometimes, right? And you're like, oh, this is the case. But when it comes down to it, I think everybody feels that to a certain extent sometimes. And so it's just kind of putting that out there in a video, that was always important to me.
This was from an article that these are possible videos that you were going to make.
Yeah.
This was 2 years ago, this article?
Yeah.
Did you make that video?
I think I've made that video in 3 or 4 forms, even though it didn't end up with that as the
You're really
final
riding
tell.
that wave.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you call it? You called it a series?
Yeah.
So you might not do the EFT.
And the NFT
series. I don't think I ever went back to that comment, so we should probably go there real quick before I get to these questions. The NFT stuff, I said to you, because you're like, I don't know if the internet's ready for this, and I said, well, you might not want to read this right now. You want to keep your heart happy or something like that before we go into the show. But it didn't seem to bother you. Are people adamantly against NFTs, or
EFTs,
are they? You
transfer
can
money
tell
out
where
of
I
account.
can stand on it. I don't even know the acronym for it. Or they don't know what it is, or they're afraid and adamantly against it.
I think afraid and adamantly against it and don't know what it is. Like sort of a swirl of all of them. And I, like I said, I think in some levels there's awfulness about the NFTs, like NFTs that are built on proof of work blockchains, so like Ethereum, which I know it's getting way probably deeper than we want to get on this topic, but like those types of things are ecological nightmares. So there's a whole aspect of NFTs that can be horrible in terms of the amount of energy they consume to essentially mint and produce more NFTs is awful. But there's also versions of that technology that aren't like that at all. And, some NFTs can be minted for the cost of about 2 Google searches. And so, like, the amount of energy people have expended just listening to this podcast is significantly higher than, a whole collection of NFTs. So I think there is some myth to it. I think, though, there's other elements where it's something new people don't understand. And so are they not ready for it or not? And why it doesn't get me down to hear people criticizing something like that, something that I've been very curious in a rabbit hole I've jumped down over the last month, is because I wanted to know what other people think. And I wanted to get a sense of it. And I got that answer. That was my fundamental. I was trying to get to the, kind of, would this make sense or not? And the answer is no, it doesn't make sense. And I'll embrace that and move forward from there. And so that's why it doesn't get me down to see people criticizing or going after something. Because I feel like, well, now I know. And
You're
now,
not personally attached to it, don't sound like.
No, I don't. I try to
You're not
avoid too
emotionally
much.
involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, and I know this actually can sometimes be unhealthy, but I try to not take things too personally, just in general.
Do you avoid personal topics where if people commented on it, it would just break your heart?
No, because I almost want to dig into it and say, well, why does it break my heart? Let me
right.
get into that.
Have you gotten into that with an ugly comment and be like, why is this hurting me so bad?
Oh, yeah. I think like the whole, I made a video a few months back about 10 things people hate about me.
You did that?
Yeah, where I just broke down probably the 10 biggest categories that I get.
How'd that video do?
It did good. Not like, it's not like a 1 million view video, but it did good. Like it's not, I wasn't like, oh, I'm disappointed I made this, but it was actually very cathartic. And the connection I actually feel like I was able to make with people who also struggle with those things. Like I'm disorganized, I have ADHD, I'm overweight. Like these things.
These are all the things.
These
are things that people pointed out.
Throw pig poop at you all the time over. And it's like, well, let me talk about it. And it almost disarms it. And then you find a connection with other people over they feel like that too sometimes. That to me is like, I think that's way more powerful than, having to let me put my feelings aside because it's a little too raw.
Do you think that helps just to address it like that?
Yeah.
That helps you?
It makes me...
that helps your heart?
Yeah, completely. Because then I feel like it's not a source of shame. It's it's what it is. I think you got to be careful, right? Like I heard people say you should tell stories about scars and not wounds. So like if you're right in the middle of something, you probably shouldn't put it all the way out there because you haven't truly processed it. Once you process something and come comfortable with it, to tell you about the scar I have on my ankle from this crazy accident I had in college, I'm fine to tell. I'd love to tell that story. Just talk about a health problem I might theoretically have. Maybe I don't want to talk about it right this second because I'm not sure even how I feel about it. I think you do have to draw that line.
Yeah, you do draw that line.
Yeah.
Did you agree with everybody in those 10 statements about them, or did you debunk them?
I think some of them I debunked. Some of them, it's fact. Am I overweight? Yeah, I'm overweight. That's a fact. Does that mean somebody should dislike me? No, they can go pound sand, and I'm happy to push that off. Am I here's one that I think actually probably cuts me the most is the fake farmer label. You just are doing this farm to make videos and not actually seeing the other way around. That always hurts. But it also is something where I can confront it and say, but that's not true. And I don't some person who's, angry and pounding away in the comments of a video, that is how they feel. It's something that's which I should have more empathy for them versus take it personally on my end.
Would it be so bad if you were just making videos?
I think
about your farm?
I've actually, since I've quit my job to just do this stuff, I've become much more comfortable with it. Where it's back to that point of like, oh, I was trying to have a farm where the marketing strategy was just make social media content, to saying, I'm going to just be a storyteller and I'm going to be a farmer
You're
and
shifting
storyteller.
right now, aren't you?
What do you mean?
You're shifting. Like
Oh, in terms of what?
you're
No, I don't think I'm shifting. I think it's me getting comfortable with what I've been doing for the last 3 years.
okay.
I think that's versus trying to like maybe delude myself where, now I have this weird question, right? Like, what's your job?
What do you tell them?
Like, I'm a farmer and storyteller, or I'm a farmer and I make videos. Like that's typically how I'll answer that question. And like, that label of like farmer / storyteller, I'm happy with that. I feel like I can commit to that and connect it. And so it's recognizing that those two things are very symbiotic, because that's how I built my farm. Like, we paid for our fencing. I bought my tractor by using Google AdSense money. And like, I've tried to be very transparent about that versus like, hiding that. And I think
That's
actually being comfortable, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think if Grandpa, as hard as he had to work back in the day, would be all about it. Like, what the heck? You have this opportunity. I think there's this weird, it doesn't make you any less of a man or a woman to walk through a door of opportunity presented you. No. Just because nowadays we have smartphones and can have our own television shows.
It's recognizing where the evolution. Yeah, exactly.
Does it mean we shouldn't jump through that door because it's easy and free, and we can make a lot of money doing it?
And it's not how your grandfather would have done it, right?
You couldn't have.
Like, your farm is very different than your grandfather's farm, even though it's in the same exact spot.
But I could guarantee you, if he'd been presented the opportunity, he would have jumped on it.
And I could also guarantee you that if he was here today and he was your age today running this farm, he would not be successful if he was just trying to run it the way he was 40, 50, 75 years ago.
Well, you can make a lot more money, and there's nothing wrong with this either. You can make a lot more money. You can make money selling chicken eggs, but you can also make money teaching people how to grow their own eggs. A lot more money that way.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with... you can give a man a fish today. You can be a farmer and give him some eggs today. Or you can teach him how to fish and he'll feed himself.
Yeah, I think it is that very much that principle. And I think it's recognizing that agriculture is changing. Yeah. Like, I've just been reading this diary from a farmer who is like right down the road from me. His family like helps me out with my farm on some things occasionally. He passed away about 3 years ago in his 80s. He started farming in like a mile away from me in the 60s. And like, that's how he's gone. He kept a diary, and it was sort of a journal of what he did. If he tried to do what he was doing today, he would not be successful. If he just focused on commodity dairy and that's what he was like, his model, he'd be really struggling and hurting today, even though kind of throughout the 80s, 90s, into the 2000s, he was doing great. Like, you have to be willing to adapt to the climate and adjust. And so I think this is an example of that.
Yeah. There should be nothing wrong or shameful in renting out an outbuilding on Airbnb as part of farm income, agritourism, school tours, content creation. We just got get rid of all the shaming all around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm all the way there, but I've been working on it for like myself.
This is rapid fire. What's your favorite time of day and why?
Morning, first thing, getting out and doing chores, and just because I love the energy of the barnyard.
To have a great mind and full of movie knowledge, to remember all those clips you inserted. Where do you come from? Where do you get it from? So amazing. Right on to the point and funny. So you said you do use a lot of movie clips. Does that come to your mind when you're filming and when you're editing?
Both. Sometimes I will have a clip immediately in my head and how that sequence is going to go, that I'm going to cut to that clip. Other times I'm editing it and something just pops into my head and it goes to it. It's sort of like a pop culture sponge over the last 40 plus years, and it just I regurgitate it up. It's just the gut.
And for my own sake, is that legal? You can post, from what I understand, you can post a movie. Would it be copyrighted?
Oh, it's all
movie
stuff, yeah.
Up to 15 seconds?
I would be very careful in giving a rule like that. It's legal. I argue it is legal under the doctrine of fair use.
Yeah.
In that my videos aren't relying on something to exclusively be a repackaging of that content.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you look at most of my content, 95% of any given video is original content done in an educational or critical context. And so by checking those boxes, as well as the minimal amount of use that I do apply to it, like I'm not using long clips, that would be where a lawyer would say, oh yeah, that's fair use. Again, didn't go to art school though. I mean, I went to art school. I didn't go to law school.
And you're not a lawyer. Have to give that.
Yeah, be very clear
disclaimer.
about that.
You're writing a novel, and it's for young people. Mm-hmm. How far are you along in that?
I am almost done, like almost.
Really?
I'll probably finish it this week with
How
my
many
third
words?
draft. So I've written a couple drafts already. It's going to be about 50,000-ish.
What inspired the story?
So I absolutely love my guard dog. Like I got my livestock guardian dog because I was having predator problems, and it's maybe I'd argue the best way to deal with predators on a farm. And I didn't expect me to like love having him there and have him be such an integral part of my life. And so like wanting to bring that to life for other people was like, I don't know, I was just totally moved by it. And I also find that like when you're a kid of like 10 years old, literature shapes your worldview in a way like nothing else does. Like things that you read, like I even told you a story earlier, like Matt Groening in his book, School is Hell, how that had such a profound effect on my worldview. And so I'd love to have a positive impact on kids from that perspective. And so telling an amazing story about my dog coming to the farm and how he views the world and how he finds his place in the world, I don't know, that's just really motivating to me. And so that's what drove it.
What's the opening line? Do you know it?
I don't know the opening line. The opening scene is Toby as a puppy with his mother as she barks off coyotes on her farm.
So something exciting happening there in the
Yeah,
beginning.
you gotta start with some action. Yeah, draw kids in.
So, how did you think of the stories line?
You know, part of it's cribbed from real life, but then thinking about it from Toby's perspective versus mine. Part of it is other incidents that have just happened on the farm.
Okay.
And then part of it is me wanting to make sure it has a good, satisfying story structure.
And it's Toby's life?
Yeah, well,
What's
it's
the story
it's so I don't know if this is going to be the official title of it, but it's my working title is Toby of Goldshaw Farm, and it's basically the story of his first year or so on the farm, going from being a puppy, being born, and being with his family on an original farm, coming to the farm, not knowing anything, and finding his place in the world to ultimately becoming the protector of the farm. It's that story.
What's his big conflict?
So it's actually, I mean, is it the internal or external conflict?
He's got both.
There's both. Oh,
Nice.
come on. Like I said, it's a good story. That was my goal. Like, it's going to be satisfying.
Well, what's his internal conflict?
His internal conflict is not feeling a sense of entitlement to a place in the world, but not knowing what that should be.
Oh.
Which I think a lot of us can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think his external one is being afraid of coyotes and bobcats.
He's afraid. Or are the other dogs afraid? Is this abnormal?
I mean, see, he's the only dog. So once he leaves his farm, he's the only dog on our farm right now. We're getting a puppy in a couple of weeks, another livestock guardian dog puppy. But he's the only dog.
No, but I mean, in the book, is he a scaredy cat? Is he dealing with that problem?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or is this just a normal fear for this type of dog in this story?
Oh no. I think he's
dealing with some fear
His mom
issues.
wasn't afraid. Why isn't he
Okay.
afraid? Why is he
Okay.
afraid? Like that sort of thing.
Good.
Yeah.
What's the happy ending?
He finds his place on the farm. Like he realizes he belongs and he's a part of the farm as much as the ducks or the geese, the barn cats. He is of the farm.
What does he think about you in the book?
You know, I think I wrote myself as just a dolt, and I feel like he and I have a very close relationship, but it's probably not portrayed as well in the book, where I'm just kind of like this external factor. It's much more about the relationship of the animals on the farm than the human characters.
Yeah.
It's like, think about it like, you ever see Muppet Babies? Remember Muppet Babies when we were kids, like cartoon, where it's like you can only see the adults from like the legs up kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't see their face or what they are, or like Peanuts, where it's like wah, 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 wah. All the humans are like that. They're not really factors.
I like to read novels, and then would think I would write one day, but I have no idea where to start. So I'm thinking to asking you, and I wouldn't ask now after talking to you. I wouldn't ask, how do I start? I should probably say, why?
Yes. Back.
So How do I explore that in a real
Why-
practical way to
All right,
where
let me
I
ask
actually
you a
start
couple
putting pen to
questions. here.
paper?
Yeah. So you say you want to write a book, or you like to read books, and so you might want to write one. But why? Why would you want to write that book?
Yeah. Well, the shallow first thing to come to my response is it'd be just really cool to make up a story that doesn't exist. I've heard of, what's his name? He wrote, Frederick, what's his name? He wrote the Ove. What's the name of that book? Anyway, he talked about how he escapes to this world with his characters.
Mm-hmm.
That his wife knows nothing about. It's just he's created this own little world.
So
with
why
his
do you feel
character.
need to escape with your characters?
Yeah, that would be to provide us escape from the world, I reckon. Yeah.
So like a form of protection kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I say I don't even know what it would be about. I've had thoughts of. I'm so very curious about how the Cherokee would have lived here. The Cherokee Native Americans would have lived here. That might be a really fun story to explain, because it was kind of like, well, I would kind of like to read about them, but I would want not a dull history book. Something more exciting, and I'm doubting that exists. So I might need to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I always think it starts with a good idea, right? Like, for a couple of years, I've been working on a graphic novel, and I've just still never gotten around to it. I doubt I ever will. About Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, right? They lived at certain periods of time at the same time, and even it's rumored that intermixed, and they had conflicts. Like, there's lots of theory about it, and not a ton of archaeological evidence. I've always wanted to write a graphic novel about that.
Yeah.
And like so
Yeah.
that's the idea. That's not the story though. That's the idea. So now, okay, so take your premise, right? So the Cherokee in this area on this
Yes.
specific spot.
Yeah.
Okay, what would be the story? What's the conflict? I think
Yeah,
I always
that's good.
define stories as a character who wants something, faces adversity to get it, and is changed as a result of the process, right?
Yeah.
Like those sort of the basic formula for it. So let's start with a character. That's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
For me, I start with my dog because I love him. I think he's got a great personality. Okay, he's here in this setting, and he's going from being a little puppy
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
mature
See, that's
one.
good.
So that's his
That's-
change.
that's- I would
now
have
I just
had-
need to come up with a conflict.
I would have had a Cherokee boy coming of age. So I would be interested. I'm always interested in, like, well, how did the Cherokee stay warm
Right.
here 500 years ago? What did they eat in the winter? What did they sleep on in their thing? So there's all these interesting historical things that would be fun to explore. I mean, there's arrowheads in fields over, but it would also give him some modern. He needs a story.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a story to make it interesting, and he needs some complex modern problems like growing up. Is he going to move? Is he going to? I don't even know enough about the Cherokee to know, did they do arranged marriages or what? So I'd have to look into that to find out if he's going to accept that or,
Yeah, I mean, but that's where I think, like, my 2 cents for you, if you really want to
Yeah.
explore this one, it's then start doing the research and
Yeah.
sort of get the historical, because if it's going to
Yeah.
be something rooted, like the book I've been working on is so rooted in my day-to-day life. I don't need to do a lick of
Yeah, I
research.
know. I'm tempted to do that, too.
It just sort of flows.
'Cause that's easy.
But like another idea for a story that I've had that I've never quite fleshed out is the story of one farm from being settled in like the 1770s to like modern times, and like how, because it was inspired by this idea. Like, so my farm, the farm I'm on, it was first settled in 1835. And
Yeah.
then I'm the 6th family to own it at this point. So it was settled by this guy in 1835. The Shaw family, which is where Goldshaw Farm comes from, they purchased it in 1870, had 3 generations that really farmed it, sold it in the mid 70s, and like they played a significant role. Think about agriculture over just that period of time alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
The evolutions, the steps, the what progression. That to me is an interesting story. And so to try to find a way to structure probably like almost an anthology of like a story from each generation, that would be interesting to me. So it's like,
Yeah, I think for the Cherokee story, then it would be interesting to explore some of the things that this Indian boy needs to be me in some ways, where he needs to decide at some point, is he going to take his family's religion? Is he going to step into his father's role and do what he's supposed to do as the society expects of him? It'd be kind of fun to explore modern
Those themes,
issues that would have been there just in a different context.
That's exactly right. I mean, like the best stories have universal themes. Like, I don't think anybody who's going to read my book is a dog.
No.
But I think many people who read my book are going to be struggling or thinking about where's my place in the world and how do I find it. I think that's a universal thing. And so that's, I think, what makes good stories that connect with people is when, there's like a surface and a wrapper that's novel and different and kind of clever, but then there's a universal truth that sits underneath it that many, many people can identify with. Yeah,
that's a good point. What are you going to do? You're going to leave here. What's next for you, and why are you pursuing that next?
So we just got about 20 inches of snow the other night. And so I had my buddy plow it, but I got a lot of snow cleanup to do when I get back to the farm. So I guess that's what I'm really doing next. In terms of like more, I think, bigger picture of where you're going, the biggest thing is, other than the book, I'm working to start a beef jerky company. So this is where it gets back to the sort of the connection between social media and farming. For the longest time, I've had so many people reach out to me and they want to buy a goose from us. They want to buy eggs from us. They want to buy things from our farm. And either because of regulation or logistics of, it cost me $200 to ship you this frozen goose on top of the actual price of the goose. Like it just doesn't make sense. I haven't done that. I thought about it a lot, and I'm like, well, jerky would be wonderful. And so could I make goose and beef and other sorts of jerky because it's dehydrated, it's shelf stable. I could actually get it out to people who see our content and want a connection with the farm. And so I'm working on trying to solve some logistical problems around it right now. Yeah. But I'd like to try to get that going by the fall.
That could be your own. Listen, that could be your own meat going into that. Sure. But you can also source, and this is you helping small farmers.
It's like you read my business plan, dude.
You can also buy from small farmers because you have the marketing audience now.
Look, you want me to say, all right, let's take a minute to be grandiose? That's exactly where it goes, where it starts with my farm and my animals. But, particularly the part of Vermont that I live in, it's been legacy dairy for the last 80 years, maybe even longer. And sort of how do we now convert that into something that's going to work for the farm, for the land, and the farmer? Grass-fed beef is like
and shipping it too.
Yeah, you really can't get better. And again, we're a relatively poor part of the state, relatively low population, so the farm to consumer ratio isn't great. So how do you get it out of here? Like, legacy dairy started in the area because they would ship butter to Boston. Like, that's how it began.
Wow.
And so, gosh, wouldn't it be great to kind of get there? Yeah, that's my dream, like 5-10 years out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to see it. So folks can follow you on Goldshaw Farm all over the internet.
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram.
Are you still on
Facebook?
Clubhouse? You still messing around there?
You know what? No. Twitter Spaces has been the place I've been, which is basically Twitter's ripoff of Clubhouse, which they launched I don't know, about 6 months ago.
Okay.
I've been doing that more.
Okay, good.
Discord. Just started a Discord.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.